All righty. Good morning. All righty. You know I got to say that again, all right? I don't have 2 Mountain Dews. I didn't drink 2 Mountain Dews this morning, but I drank about 3 cups of coffee, all right? So I need your energy, all right? Good morning. Folks, yesterday we had an amazing day. But before we get started, I want to just a couple housekeeping items. Number one, folks, we really want your feedback, okay? On the app, if you're already on the app, if you're not, please get on the app. We would love your feedback as far as in the sessions. We want to make sure that we get that feedback. Also, if you're taking pictures, please make sure that you use hashtag NDPC35, all right? We want to make sure that we're connected to those pictures and make sure that we bring all that in to then get that information on out to you. But, folks, yesterday we had an amazing day yesterday, all right? Did you guys have a good time yesterday? I'm going to say that again. Did you guys have a good time yesterday? That's what I'm talking about. I was like actually in the elevator going down, and I was speaking to a young lady, and I said, hey, how was your day yesterday? She was like, our day was amazing yesterday. I was like, tell me a little bit about it. She says, you know what? We went to different sessions, trauma, and you know what? We're already talking about coming next year. We're already getting the money ready to come next year. I said, you know what? I'm going to shout you out. What's your name? She was like, what? I was like, yeah, give me your name. What's your name? She says, and I wrote it down. Chesley Darby from Baldwin County, Alabama. Give her a round of applause. Also, folks, I did not know that when I talked about my son yesterday and that he was connected to aviation, that I get almost 30 people that came up to me and say, listen, we got a simulator in New Jersey, right? You've got to come to New Jersey. I'm like, okay, folks, I'm going to track out like a national tour, and I'm just going to go to different states, and I'm saying, son, we got an air show here. We're going to go there. They're building airplanes there, right? But the first person I told you I was going to give a shout out, she sat down, talked about how great the sessions were yesterday. Her name is Kelly from New Jersey. Give her a round of applause, right? And also 2 ladies, folks, their first names are Jackie. They didn't think I was going to give them a shout out, right? And the way that I know them is, it's like, okay, that's Norfolk Jackie, and that's North Carolina Jackie, right? They're waving their hand. Give them a round of applause, right? But there's a couple ways that I know that at the end of the day, we had an amazing, successful day. And usually at 4 o'clock, when all the sessions are over, but people are still connected and still just kind of, not on their way to their rooms, but just kind of every 5 seconds, just kind of moving their way. They just talk and then they move that way, right? And then you see people that are smiling. I saw so many smiles yesterday. And I saw so many, come on, let's take a picture, right? Let's take a picture. When that happens at 3 o'clock, and when sessions are over and people are still fired up, then you know you had a great day. Another thing was engagement. I was in a session where I heard somebody singing. I was like, are we in church this morning? It's like 10 o'clock, someone was singing. I think Dr. Turner, who was in that session, she was in there singing yesterday. I say, nah, goodness, we having church this morning, right? And folks, we started out with a little preaching at that keynote yesterday, right? Because I was doing a bunch of preaching to you guys, right? So we had engaging sessions all day long. And folks, today, we're going to have an amazing keynote, right? I want to just talk with you about my friend Bernadine Futrell. She is an amazing keynote. She's going to be talking with us about really the life as a system. I think it's education as life systems, and really making sure that we're making sure that children are graduating. A little bit about Bernadine. She is from Virginia, all right? Matter of fact, she's got a PhD and a master's degree from George Mason University, right? Also, the thing about Bernadine is Bernadine and I have a son and a daughter that's almost the same age, right? So when we're talking, we're actually talking about things that my daughter is going through, and I think your son is the same age as my daughter, right? So in our conversations, we're talking about that, always really coordinating that. And also, she's done some amazing things. She's worked for the Superintendent's Association, AESA, a couple other things, folks. She was a child in Head Start and would be the first director of Head Start, right? Right? Round of applause, round of applause. Deputy Assistant Secretary at the U.S. Department of Education. Folks, during the Biden and Harris administration, during the pandemic, right? So she's got some stories about really collaborating and bringing some people together. Managing Director of Mind Up, the Goldie Hawn Foundation, folks. And one thing about Bernadine is she actually serves as a youth pastor. You didn't think I knew that. Serves as a youth pastor, right? Major community initiatives, and she's chairing the National Action Commission Institute for Leadership Education, where she's bringing educators from all across the nation to really, really talk about what are those next steps in education. Folks, give a warm welcome for my friend, Miss Dr. Bernadine Futrell.
So wonderful to be here. Now I got a mic. Good morning. I said, wow, this is a live group at 8:30 a.m. Y'all better go ahead. It's so good to be here. Also, just want to acknowledge Dr. Peters is also serving as one of our commissioners for that newly established commission. So thank you for your leadership and your work and the kind introduction. And also my friend Todd Daggett, I know he's standing, making things happen. I want to thank you also for the invitation. And I want to thank all of you for the work that you do, your commitment, how you lead, how you serve, how you show up to continue to serve our babies, even when it's hard, even when it's unclear, even when you don't know if you should be going right or left. And so what I want to invite you to do with me, which I try to do, especially when things are spiraling, is I like to pause. I want to invite you to pause, and I want you to think about a student, a child. I want you to get them in your mind. I want you to picture that one student who might be on at the edge of checking out. They may have checked out, but they're still showing up. Whoever that student is, I want you to just think about that one student. When you get their name in your mind, that one student that could be thinking about giving up or walking away. And I want you to hold their name today, because today in this whole conference is really about that child. It's about being intentional about how we come together. Really, this is, training ground. This is like a huddle. We come together in places like this so that we can huddle on strategies and effective ways to reach that one child. And so I want to have you keep that one student in your mind, and we'll come back to it. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. I'm just got some assessments here. I'm going to ask you to raise your hands for me. If everybody could just raise your hand. Very good. And now I'm going to ask you to raise it higher. And I want to make a point about that space between where we raised our hand and we raised our hand higher. That's the space I want us to talk about today. You can put your hands down. Because that's the space of the extra stretch, the extra push, the extra pull that our children desperately need from us on the days when they're ready to walk away from it all. I got that from my son, who's 12. He watched a young man get an award for, a young man got an award. And he came home, he said, "Mom, Dad, raise your hand." And we raised our hand. And he says, "Raise it higher." And he's like, "Why didn't you give it all the first time?" And he said, "It's because you have more to give than you think. You have more in you than you think." And so remembering that that's our job, that's what we're doing. Our job is to raise our hands higher, raise our expectations higher, raise our standards higher for our children. And I definitely forgot about the slide. Thank you. Okay. Now, today's conference theme, I want to commend again the National Dropout Prevention, because the theme, evidence-based solutions for today's educational challenges, it's more than timely. It is a call to action for all of us, knowing what we know in our hearts, but also taking that and getting the practice behind it to drive change for individual students that leads to systems change that we all know that we desperately need in our schools. And I'll tell you, coming from Washington, D.C., working in the White House and everything that's happening across the world, it's easy to say that, sorry, I thought I did that. It's easy to say, all this stuff is going on. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to move. I don't know what I can do. But at the end of the day, regardless of what's happening with the budget, what's happening even on the weekend in the community, what's happening when it comes to what our kids are seeing on the media, they're still going to show up to school on Monday. And the question for us is, will we be ready for them? And how will we show up for them? And what they need us to do is to show up fully and even beyond what we think we can do to support them. And so when we talk about the work that we're doing and we talk about education, it's not just an educational system. It is a life system. Education is life-changing and life-saving. I know this room, as Dr. Peter said, I'm preaching to the choir, knows that when students graduate from high school, they have better outcomes in life. We also know, unfortunately, and it continues to get worse, when students don't graduate from high school, they have lower life expectancy. And so that's a crisis. That's a problem. That's an issue that we know that we can do something about, one student at a time. And so I'm going to ask you all for some audience participation here. I'm going to ask 2 people from each table if you could stand up. You can volunteer or be voluntold like sometimes we do with our young folks. So if you get 2 people that can stand up. And if it's only 2 at your table, then guess what? You're it. No, just kidding. Okay, so for the 2 people that are standing, if you can kind of face each other, you don't have to be super close, but face each other enough that you can interact with each other. And I want everybody else to kind of watch this scene that we're gonna set in the room. I'm gonna try to take this down so I can come down with you. We're gonna watch the scene in the room. So the 2 people, so we want one person to be A, one person to be B. So if you're A, raise your hand. Okay, that was good. If you're B, raise your hand. That's good. If you're C, you're not doing this same activity we're doing. Okay, so what I want you to do, those that are facing each other, the A and the B, just look at each other. I know they look beautiful this morning, don't they? So much joy. It's your best friend you didn't know you had. Okay, so I want you to do a little bit of role play with me. And then if you can see the 2 that are at your table, look at them or just look around if you're sitting. But the 2 that are standing, A, I want you to be one of our students. And your job is to take everything you have to graduate. And B, you're going to be everything that's going against the student who's trying to graduate. And you're going to do a tug of war. So there's no ropes. We're going to keep it safe. So when I count to 3, I just want you to just demonstrate the tug of war scenario. So that means you got to do some role play and you got to kind of like work with your partner, back and forth, okay? All right, so on 3. 1, 2, 3. Now as you see it, as he's pulling, that's good. We have some props in here. Keep pulling. Think about what the student is pulling. He got up, he got in the door. He came in. He pushed. She pushed. But they ran late and they got marked tardy and an absence. That's good. Okay, so when I count to 3, I'm gonna have you all stop. So let me know who won. All right, 1, 2, 3. Okay, Thank you for doing that. You can have your seats. Just a side note, this is a competitive room. It's an invisible rope, but you all were so competitive. I said, okay, let me let them decide who wins. So if you won, go ahead and raise your hand. That way you can, there we go. Let's celebrate the winners. But in reality, our children are coming to school every single day fighting a tug of war. It's invisible. Nobody can see it, but the student is fighting it. And sometimes they're fighting it on their own. They're holding on. Sometimes they're barely holding on to the rope, and it looks like they're getting dragged. But the fact that they show up in your schools and your organizations means they still have won. And our responsibility, our opportunity is to get behind them and be that extra strength to pull with the knowledge, the skills, and the disposition to know that there's a lot of things you don't see that's impacting this child, but holding on to that belief that every child can graduate and every child can reach their fullest potential. And I am a superhero. I'm like Iron Man. If I get on the rope, I have exponential power and I can help that student out. And so that's the visual that I think about when we think about our children, because they are in this tug of war and we don't see it. And sometimes we're like, oh, I wish you would just do what X, Y, Z while you're in school. I changed my mind. I want all of us to change our mind. It's like, man, you got to school today. I don't have to know anything about anything in your life. The fact that you came to school today, you have won. And now my job is to usher you in to your next level of success. And so the reality is some of our kids are pulling, and they don't know what's coming against them. They just know something inside they want to fight and they want to pull, and then eventually they either are successful or they're not. And I know for me personally and my family, we've seen it when the rope has slipped away from our children, from our students, and when they decide that dropping out is the best option for them because nobody is on the other side in their ear saying, you can do it. Come on, I see greatness in you. You're better than that. Come on, man, that's not you. And so when that happens to our children, then we can lose them. And for me and my family, we had one brother who was right in the middle. So imagine being the middle child and you're the only boy. 2 older sisters, 2 younger sisters. I'm the youngest. Well, he got to a point in middle school where he couldn't pull that rope anymore and he dropped out. And he eventually, got his GED, but he never got the life that I know he was supposed to have. And he passed away too early. And I remember being angry. I used to get mad when I saw old men. I'm like, what are you doing growing old? But then I changed it to have a different perspective to say, what is my responsibility with that pain, with that hurt, to help somebody else come over and grab that rope for them? And that is the work that we get to do. And that's why when I say thank you and I'm happy to see you, I mean that. Because you are the people that families depend on, that my family depends on, that's making an impact. And you may never, ever get the rose or the flowers or even a thank you or even eye contact. Come on, we work with kids, right? But know that you're planting something in them that is long-lasting and life-changing. Now, I know we're not here to be sad, so I'm going to bring it back up. But the idea, though, is, it is life-changing. It is life or death. And I don't want to, stay there, but the reality is you all are lifesavers. And not just teachers, not just counselors or whatever role you have in a school, but you're connectors to bringing our children to something that is bigger than them, something that can be more impactful for them, and something that really can help us all out as a nation. So we're going to take a deep breath, everybody. Deep breath in, out. Okay, now I'm like, somebody tell a joke. All right. So now I want to talk a little bit about what I've seen at the Department of Education. and what I've seen every day. So as I mentioned to you, school is a life system. We know our kids tug of war and it can save a life. But the reality is, unfortunately, our schools are not doing that for every child. So I deal with this tension, this tug of war, this tension of schools are great, but they're also duplicating inequities. Schools are making an impact, but they're also pushing kids out. And how do we reconcile that? How do we move forward in a way that allows us to get the best out of our education while at the same time preparing our students to overcome and navigate the situation and the systems that they find themselves in? And so what I've thought to do is think about, how do we take all of the good things we learn? And I've had the blessed opportunity to really lead at the highest levels, to sit in rooms and hear things and see different perspectives, see schools all across the country, see Head Start all across the country. I led the Head Start program as the first Head Start baby to do that. And so my view was a little bit different when we sat in rooms and had conversations. But I also remember going to Head Start programs, and some I could go in with my regular shoes, and some I had to wear flats because I might poke a hole in the floor. And so I understand that we have great things happening in our schools and our educational systems, but the disconnect is not yet there. The disconnect is still there. And so how do we make those connections? How do we support our kids? How do we create conditions where every learner is thriving and we can navigate through these gaps and inequities? And so what I'm calling this idea is, I call it the life system of learning. I like to think about education as a life system. And I know you all do a lot of middle school and high schoolers, but I just want to shout out my Head Start family. I don't know if you're here. If any early learning people in the room, I see you, I thank you. And I say that because the early learning systems, the earlier we can get our families and children connected to education as a life system, the stronger they can be on the back end. And so as we think about this, what I've kind of played around in my head is this idea of having an alignment between your heart, your head, and your mind. So heart set, mindset, and your head set, which essentially is for our students, because they come wanting it. They come wanting to do it. They want to make the impact, but we got to tell them the skills to navigate. Now, yes, education reform is important. We want to do systems work. That's important. But what I'm going to talk about today is the student. What can we give them in their toolkit? So if they have to transfer schools in the middle of the year, you've put something in them that they can use in a different situation. I used to work at a youth emergency shelter, and I remember thinking, I only have these kids from 0 to 90 days. What are they going to remember when they leave from being connected to me? And so that's a mindset that I think about when I think about this framework. What do we want to give our kids? So number one, headset is what they know, the knowledge, exposure, academic tools that we provide. And then the heart set, what they feel, who cares for them, who they care for, who they might stay out in the rain for. And the mindset, what they believe, that inner voice that says, I can do this, I belong here. So you think about the alignment of head, heart, and mind, starting with the headset, every student, and I know we all agree in this room, right, deserves a high quality curriculum and early learning experiences. Every student. And then every student also needs to understand how their brain works. And so we at the Goldie Hawn Foundation, Mind Up, we've done research on how do we help students understand how their brains work. And we found that when you teach them how their brains work, guess what they do? They use their brains in different ways. And so the strategy is telling them about their emotional brain, telling them about how they can use mindfulness and positivity really to sustain, because hard things happen. We can't sugarcoat it, but we can help our children understand how to navigate it. We can tell them that just because something hard happened or something bad happened, you're not bad. And so we got to help them understand that, especially as they have different experiences that we can't imagine. Because we're preparing kids for a world we cannot imagine. Like if someone were to say 10 years ago, hey, you're going to have to do a national conference and it's all going to be online. How are you going to get it done? We would have been like, that's not going to happen. That's impossible. I don't know how to do it, because we couldn't imagine that. Imagine the challenges that our babies are going to solve that we cannot even imagine, and we have to prepare them for that. And so that's why, as I mentioned at the Hahn Foundation, we teach children neuroscience. We teach them about their brain. We teach them about the emotional part of the brain, the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, and the hippocampus, and we teach them how learning happens. We teach them how to regulate their emotions so they're not, making decisions that then they have to come back to. And we've had randomized control trials and studies that show the impact of Mind Up, really teaching children about their brains, but also other positive psychology and other components. And so we know it increases the stress, improves stress regulation. And how do we know how you measure stress? Anybody know? Can tell me? Cortisol. And what's that? How do you get that? I'm looking for somebody to say spit. So yes, cortisol. So you measure the cortisol and then you can measure the levels of stress. And so we did a study on that. And what we found is that the students who had Mind Up actually kind of had lower stress throughout the school day. But here's the part that I want to make sure we all hear in this room, because you're working with our babies. Those who did not actually went below baseline. So with no intervention, their stress levels are increasing just by being present in schools, in classrooms. And we know their minds are kind of processing all kinds of things that we can't see. It's that invisible tug of war. We also know that it improves academic performance as well, so we don't want to leave that out. We're in over 7 million, we've served over 7 million students, China, Canada, all over the US as well. Tons of free resources online. I'm going to have a breakout later, happy to talk more about Mind Up specifically, but really the point is making sure our kids understand what they need to know so that they can make better decisions for themselves. So the curriculum, the content, early learning experiences, and teaching them about their brain. And this is our cute little brain buddies. We have the amygdala, that's the guard dog. So if something goes wrong, our default is to look for and be safe in the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus. And so again, I'm going to have a session on that so you guys can come to that if you want to talk more about Mind Up, or reach out to me as well. But the second part is this idea of a heart set. So that's your mindset. What's the content? What's the knowledge that you have? So that when you're facing something, you know, okay, I remember how to add. I remember how to calm my brain when situations happen. The next one is an alignment of your heart. And that's the care, the empathy, what motivates you, what motivates our kids to be engaged. And so Brookings, Rebecca Winthrop, and Jenny Anderson, they released this book earlier this year. It's called The Disengaged Teen. And there's a matrix that talks about where our babies are. So it's the agency, so like how active they are in their learning versus the engagement, what they think, feel, and do. And they put them in 4 different buckets. The resistors, who are kind of just disengaged, checked out, but they're gonna make sure you know they're disengaged and checked out, so you're not just gonna sit in the back of the room. The passengers, who are, not a lot of agency, not a lot of engagement. They're just kind of there. They could be getting all C's. They're just doing enough not to get on the radar. They're keeping it calm, and without the proper supports, at some point, that keeping it at a C in middle school may tank you to getting on a path that you might not be able to graduate. And then there are the achievers. They're engaged cognitively, but they're emotionally disengaged. And so they're there, they're following whatever you say they're going to do. They're going to get that A, they're going to be perfect, they're the perfectionists. And then they're the explorers, who are engaged academically and emotionally. And her research is what they found, and what they're saying is, we're creating more students have experiences that are leading them to be less of the explorer and more passengers and achievers. And so are creating more and more children who are prepared to follow instead of lead. Fewer children are being creative. And there's a graph in her book where it shows from early years, they start off engaged and excited, questioning, asking, big idea questions. But then towards middle school and beyond, they just realize, oh, how do I win in this system? Let me just achieve. Or how do I win in this experience that I'm in? Let me just be quiet. It's better if I don't say anything. And the challenge is, they are our future leaders, so we need them. I want the person that's going to be my dentist, my doctor, my healthcare provider to be well-equipped and ready to face challenges and not just compliant and not just going along to get along. And so we have an opportunity with this new research around our student engagement to really look at that and look at our educational policies as well. So if we have a way to engage students, we shouldn't use that as a punishment if they do something that we don't necessarily like. So if we have a student who's kind of hanging in there and we say, oh, you got to get off the sports team because you got a C or a D, like we're taking the thing that's engaging that student away. Instead, we should build on it. And we should incentivize and support and not be punitive, because once that engagement is gone, it's more work to bring it back. I have a niece who wanted to, she was really excited about hair care products when she was in high school. And she was like, she wanted to learn like how to make her natural curls. So she was in this whole healthy hair kick. And I remember saying, okay, Shannon, I like that you're excited about hair care. What do you want to do with it? And then I started talking to her about different parts of it. And then I realized she started like at home mixing different things to make her own conditioner and things like that. And I said, Shannon, what you're doing is engineering. You know, that's like something what chemical engineers do. Have you thought about it? And then fast forward, Shannon went to college to be an engineer, because I was able to make the connections to her. And once you tell somebody something, you know, like they see it. So like, raise your hand if you've ever bought a car and then all of a sudden everybody in your neighborhood has that car, right? So our minds are looking for patterns, looking for connections. And as adults, we have the opportunity to do that for kids. When I was working with the AVID program, and I don't know if anybody's AVID's here, but I love AVID, so shout out AVID. There we go. But one of the things about the students that were in the AVID program is they would have these adults who could navigate for them. And so they would have adults that could help them out in schools. And you find out when all of our kids have high aspirations. They all want to be high achievers. They just don't know the pathway. They don't know the steps. They don't know the first step and the next step to take. And so it's our job to lean into this engagement and bring them along with something that they can be a part of. And the third one is this mindset. And I'm sure we've seen this video, but I feel it fitting for this conversation for us to watch it again. The mindset is children to have a belief in themselves, to think higher about yourself, honestly, even than you might do others. Because we have to give them this confidence to know that they should expect a high level of experiences. They should expect it. But the challenge with mindset is if they don't know it, they can't see it. And so while I might think that I want to be successful, while I might think that I want to come to school every day, while I might think that I want to get straight A's, if I don't see it, if I can't taste it, touch it, feel it, I don't know it. So I don't know what to do with this thing in me. So then I'm pulling that rope and I need somebody on my side that can help me with it. So I'm going to play this video by Rita Pearson.
Low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class. Because I am the best teacher and you are the best students, they put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? And I gave him a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. Years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a good video to go back to every now and again, because you as leaders, as educators, if you work in any capacity with children, you are a leader, you are an educator, you are a lifesaver. And what that means is you're pouring out. And my pastor, Pastor Deborah, our senior pastor, she says, when you pour out, it's empty, 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 empty. And so you have to pour back into yourself. And so just want to pause and speak to you, the adults, the loving, caring, dynamic adults that our children need, not because we feel it in our hearts and we know from the research, but because our children will tell you by their actions they need you. But it can be draining. Whether you're day-to-day, eye-to-eye, or whether you're looking through information and statistics that's painting a picture that is different from the hope that you have. And so for you as leaders, I say often healthy leaders lead healthy organizations. And so you have to put yourself first. Everyone knows the old quote, well, not old, they say it every time on the airplane. You got to put your mask on before you do what? Put it on somebody else. And so for you all leading this work, this heavy heart work, it's important that you pour into yourself. You're doing that. You're here at a convention, at a conference, and I want to encourage you to continue that, because our kids need us to be healthy. Our kids need us to be healthy so they can then thrive and they can get the best version of us and the best experience of us. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So get connected with your colleagues. It's an amazing opportunity at this conference where you have colleagues from across the country that are kind of wrestling with that same tension of issues and challenges that you might see in your community. They might have a solution that you could try, or they might have a good recommendation for a restaurant you can eat at while you're here. Either way, make those connections, because that's what our kids need us to do. Our kids need us to be healthy. And so I just want to pause and leave you to just a few seconds to ask the question of yourself: how are you taking care of the person who carries everyone else? I just want you to reflect on that question for a second. What are you doing? What could you be doing? What have you seen others do? Because that's the work that's in front of us. it's important for you, not just for you. It's also, as I mentioned, important for our students. Because if we can't see different experiences, it's hard for us even to imagine different outcomes for them. I personally make it a point, anytime I see somebody who is an infant all the way up to a young adult, I make sure I stop and lock eyes and say hello. They don't always look. They don't always acknowledge. But I do that as my own reminder that my purpose for even going down that hall or that way is to make an impact, to impact someone. And then I take a moment to take it in and reflect on how that is helping not just me, but our world. And so when you all are going out, you are first line. You are the Avengers. I don't know if, I keep using superheroes because that's how I see the work that you all do every single day. When I was at the Department of Education as a Deputy Assistant Secretary, I would go across the country and meet people who would just tell stories about how they were pulling together different things to support our kids. When I was a Head Start director, I would sit in rooms and have conversations about we should raise wages and we should pay more. And they would say, well, we can't pay anymore because we need to do this for the kids and this for the kids. And I said, that's important. The kids are important. Absolutely. But if our adults are not healthy and able to do the work for the kids, it doesn't matter because they are the ones that's making the impact. So I had to say things like, if you have to use your additional money to give a raise versus finding one more family, you might need to do that because if not, your staff may burn out and your whole program and your whole operations may go away. And so we want to make sure we prioritize the adults in supporting them in this work. And on that note, I'm going to invite you all to participate. So at Mind Up, we have a signature practice, which is a brain break. And what we found through our research is regardless of age, but we do our research on young children, when you take a brain break 3 times a day, it changes the structure and the flow in your brain. It was an epigenetic study that showed that the how your brain operated changed when you do things like pause, take an assessment, show gratitude, think positive. It's hard. And you all know, I know you had a lot of sessions on trauma, so you know that trauma can impact, but you can also do the work to try to create one when they're early, but also as they get older, create these new pathways. But for you all, I'm going to pause. It's a video we have with Goldie doing a brain break, and just follow along on the instructions.
Let's do a brain break. Here's how it goes. Oh, find a comfortable place to sit. In your chair, on the floor. Sit up tall. Breathe in so the air can fill your lungs. I invite you to close your eyes, but you don't have to. Now I'm going to ring this chime. Listen for as long as you can. And then when you can't hear it any longer, just relax. Turn your hands over. Open your palms. And just slowly breathe. As you breathe, feel the air going into your lungs, into your tummy, and then let it out very gently. Your mind, your beautiful mind, it's going to think of a lot of things because that's what minds do. But we want to relax our mind. So just take those thoughts, pretend they're clouds, and watch them drift away. And come back to your breath. Your wonderful, calming breath.
So we ask, and we work with schools, and they integrate a brain break 3 times a day. And what we find is it gives more time in the classroom. It regulates the classroom. And what I know is we did a lot of this at the Department of Education. We focused on, things that were the environment and things that were happening, especially in schools where violence is endemic, and putting strategies out. And I would always say, we have to give our kids something that they can use, even if that classroom stays disruptive, even if everything else doesn't work. What do we do for that child? Because in my experience, our babies aren't always going to go to that same classroom, that same school, even throughout their school year, and definitely not throughout their whole educational journey. And so as I think about the kids that I worked with at the shelter who would come in at night, I'd have 2 days with them before I connected them to school, or kids that were in a juvenile detention center that I worked with, I don't know when I'll see you again. And I believe that you all have that same heart and mind. And so when you see them, you want to give them every single thing you can, because you don't know, 1, if you're going to see them again, and 2, you don't know what's going to stick. And in doing that, which is the right work, is the important work, it's important that you take care of yourself in this work and in this journey. And then we can get to the joy and the happiness. I love this photo because these are kids. This is who they want to be. This is who they are. This is how they interact with the world. And they're asking us to do what we can so that they can get to that joy. And so I want to take us back to that student that you thought about when we first started. And I want you to think about one thing that you're going to try to do this week to make an impact with that child. Are you going to greet them differently? There's research, there was a empirical research study that showed when students got a warm greeting, their attendance and engagement went up by 20%, and their disengagement went down. Just by somebody saying hello to you. Are you going to teach them about their brain? So no matter where they go, they'll be able to remember that they maybe should take a pause and a break before they take into some risky behavior. Are you going to push them a little further with love? So at your table, just talking amongst yourselves, I'm going to give you some time to think about that student and think about what you might do for them this week, or Monday morning, I should say. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Thank you. Do I have anybody that wants to volunteer? Maybe share. Can we get 2 or 3 people that might want to share? You can raise your hand. Okay. I'm coming over. Are you volunteering?
My boss, yeah.
You want to share? Okay. How you doing? What's your name? I'm Bernadine. Scott. Where are you from, Scott?
Hermiston, Oregon. Yep.
Okay. We're going to hear from Scott from Oregon. And if there's 2 more that want to volunteer, if you could raise your hand, I can make my way to find you as well.
Okay, I think sometimes the simplest strategies, like saying good morning, hello, being outside the door of your classroom, welcoming your kids in, hearing again the 20% impact on behavior and retention, that's powerful. How come we don't always do some of these most simple strategies, right? And so And the next thing I just connect real quick is the part of we don't often celebrate the kids that are sitting there in front of us every day. We complain about the kids that aren't. So I think, again, twofold there.
That's good. All right. Good job. Thank you. Let's give Scott a round of applause. Do I have 2 more volunteers? I see one at this table. Karima, where are you from? Oh, Karima from Florida, Fort Lauderdale. Okay.
Hi, so we were discussing, I love the brain break idea, and the way our school is, we have a 5-hour day, so the students, we have block scheduling. So we figure one time, halfway through each class, we could do a brain break over the PA system, use either the Calm app or something like Dr. Futrell. I'm sorry about that. That Dr. Futrell showed us, and we could tell everyone, okay, this is a school-wide brain break because the students need it, but also, as she said, we need to heal ourselves as well. So when everyone as a whole takes that minute, listen to whatever we're going to do over the PA system and take that brain break 3 times per day.
We also do mental health for our teachers, and we notice that our retention rates are very, very high. We have an 85% retention rate on our educators, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we're paying attention to their mental health and the fact that they're in the classroom for an hour and a half with these children, that the challenges can be very stressful for the teacher as well. So these brain breaks, that's a great idea because it allows everyone just to disconnect for 1 minute and come back to it and start over. It's a great.
That's good. What's her name? Where are you from?
Tammy Lara. I'm also from Fort Lauderdale, Sunnet High.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That was good. And the idea of mental health, it's preventative mental health. And I think to the points that were made, sometimes, well, all the time, we focus on the negative outlier. Our brains are designed for that. Going back to, our ancestors, we are designed to scan the environment for something that could harm you or hurt you. So when we're in the room, your default is to find the thing that's an outlier that's negative. It's the negativity bias. And so what we have to do for ourselves and for our children, especially in different environments, is help them to see and train their brains to look for the positive in the environment. Because that's how you're going to be able to move through the things, because you can always find something negative. And anybody got family members like that? It's like, it's a wedding, come on. But the reality is that's what our minds and brains want to do. And so sometimes, as Scott mentioned, sometimes we're focusing on the outlier, the student that's not there. And I'm not saying don't focus on that student, but I'm also saying focus on the other student and realize that because they came and they showed up, they won. And you want to be on their side as well to keep them engaged and connected. And so we want to be able to train our minds and our brains on how to search for the positive outliers. Sean Aker talks about it in positive psychology around looking for the positive outliers, this idea of orange frogs, like everybody going in one direction. Be the one that goes in the opposite. Be the orange frog, the happy frog, the frog that's looking for the possibilities, having optimism, joy, because that's how you get through this work. It is not lost on me, and I'm sure nobody in this room, the challenges that our kids face. But we can't stay in that place where we're studying and being so familiar with the problem that we're not able to look up and see the solutions and the positive strategies that are in front of us. And that's the work and that's the opportunity that you get to do. But you got to have your kind of heart, mind, head, not just for our babies, but for us as educators as well. Because we might not be able to make the connection in a way that we would want to, but we need to figure out how to do it in a way that allows us to have the biggest impact that we can when it comes to our kids. And so as we kind of wrap up a little bit, I'm going to play a few minutes of a video that we produced I could talk to you about the teen brain. As Dr. Peters says, my PhD is in psychology, not neuroscience. But at the same time, I'm not a teenager. So what we did at the Goldie Hawn Foundation with some of the leading neuroscientists is we created a video around the teen brain. And so we're going to watch a few minutes of this. It's a 10-minute video. It's on our website. It's free. Tons of resources that are free. But I'm just going to play a few minutes of this. And then at the end of that, I'm going to invite you to have a conversations at your table about how the things that you hear here can impact what you plan to do with that one student next week.
So you want to know what it feels like to be a teen? A lot of it is like a roller coaster.
Everything is just more extreme.
School, friends, drama.
It's just a lot.
So what is going on in the teen brain? And we do know that the teen years are some of the most important years in human development. And people across cultures have known this, marking the teen years with rites of passage and celebration. But now we have more science than ever before to understand the teen brain and why it's such an amazing time.
There's so much that I want to know about my brain.
I mean, I wish I knew more about what's going on in my brain when I was a teen.
So we asked the top scientists and researchers,
what are the most important things to know about the teen brain?
Adolescents are emotionally brilliant.
Adolescents are super learners who are natural explorers.
One of the great things about adolescents is that they're risk takers. They're sensation seekers. And that's not a bad thing.
So it's like they're supposed to try new things and take risks. That's how they learn. But that's also where the stereotypes come from.
Teenage gang debs. Kick happy, thrill hungry, always reckless.
Teenagers look like adults, but we're measuring them as deficient adults. We don't go to toddlers and say, you're a deficient preschooler.
When you promote adolescence as a time of brokenness, adolescents will think they're broken.
We can't tell them that they belong if there actually isn't cues in place to make them feel like they belong.
It's a precarious time because kids still have one foot in childhood and they're stepping into the earliest stages of adulthood.
Being a teen means being in an awkward stage of, with you guys, I feel a lot like a kid because you guys are my parents, but when I'm with my friends, I feel like an adult.
During adolescence, roughly age 10 to 19, you go through a process of separating, individuating from the adults in your life to set you up to eventually be more independent.
There are even biological things that happen. I mean, you might feel like, I don't even want my parents to breathe around me. That's totally normal.
When I asked the teens in my study what adults should know about people their age, one of the things that they said was understand us, understand our development. We're often saying little things to them like, stop being such a teen.
Honestly, I just wish adults would remember that they went through this too. They could really learn from who they used to be.
It is an age when you have the courage to try new things. This drive to really explore novelty is a wonderful feature of how the brain is remodeling in various fascinating ways.
The amygdala, which is this loud emotional space, part of the limbic system, becomes much more sensitive during this period. It actually grows in size from being flooded with hormones. No wonder you feel like you're on a roller coaster ride of emotions every day.
I've been just having a bunch of emotions that I don't understand.
Emotions feel so strong and it's all like, I'm upset in this moment and it's hard to sort of see the bigger picture.
And the prefrontal cortex, which is about judgment and decision-making, is just a little bit quieter during this period, growing at a different rate.
You just like your mind, it's like almost like your mind plays tricks on you.
Like I felt like I couldn't get out of this mental space.
The brain is changing the fundamental aspect of its structural connections, what's called more integrated. That is, the linkages will become more robust. An adolescent, even at 15, is able to do so much more than a child at 10.
This is my first time doing this. I don't know what I'm doing.
If you tell me the oven is hot, I'm gonna have to touch it.
Every few months, we'll have a moment where we feel like we level up in consciousness.
They are just in progress. And the worst part for kids about having brains under construction is the disappointment they feel when they make a bad decision.
Being mentally healthy is not about feeling good or calm or relaxed or happy. It's two things: having feelings that fit the situation and then managing those feelings well. So if you're upset because an upsetting thing has occurred, you might want to talk to people who love you. You might want to go for a run. You might want to listen to your sad playlist. You might want to have a good cry. Your job is finding ways to feel better that bring relief and do no harm.
And sometimes the things that make you feel better might also open up new passions. The teen brain is wired to try lots of new things to see what lights you up. What are you passionate about?
People who are doing things they're passionate about and put in energy and effort and love it and are clearly loving it. That's what like forever will be the coolest thing.
Where I focus my attention is going to strengthen my brain even as it's beginning to prune itself down.
Which is basically saying, pay attention to what you're paying attention to.
And so that video.
So you want to.
There we go. Back. Okay. So that video is just an example. And that video is really talking to teenagers. I mean, we watched it as adults, we like it, but it's really a video for teenagers. The whole approach and the strategy is that, you know, the hidden curriculum or the things that you figure out on your own. Let's just tell kids, this is what is happening in your brain. This is the stage of experiences and decision making that you're going to be exposed to. Here's why you are so addicted to your video game. You know, you talk to them about dopamine, and then they can make decisions with that knowledge. And so that's our whole like approach and whole strategy. And for me growing up, I know that's how I was able to navigate. Because I at some point said, you know, I can think of all of the hard things that are happening or have happened in my life, or I can find something positive, and that has been able to sustain and kind of keep our mind strong. So in the few minutes that I have left, I want to give that time, a little bit of that time to you again, to talk at your tables talk to each other rather, about what, for that one student that you're thinking about Monday morning, or if you're going to work on Friday, what are you going to do? What can you do? What ideas do you have? How can you serve them in this moment? I'll give you about 2 minutes, and then looking for 2 or 3 volunteers that will share with us. And I also want you to think about what your students, how they might react to a brain break. And I'll tell you, I have a 6, Dr. Peters and our kids are the opposite, but the same age. My boy is the same age as his daughter, and my daughter's the same age as his son. And, but when I told my daughter, who's in the 6th grade, I said, let's do a brain break. She laughed, and it was so like, what are you talking about? And then a few weeks later, she said, hey, Mom, I did that brain break thing you told me about. And I was able to calm down when I was like worried about this test. So just curious how you think your kids might react to that, plus any strategies you may have. So if you can talk to each other, or if there's somebody at another table that you want to talk to, go ahead. I'm going to give you about a half a minute. All right, okay. Can I have a few brave, dynamic volunteers that will come up? I'm maybe about 5. Let's see if we have 5 that want to share. And I'm going to ask you to come up here so we can pass the mic to each other. So again, just want you to share either what you talked about at your table, or even if you have just an overall observation or reflection from today's session conversation. Want to just kind of share some knowledge in the room and hear your voices, because you all have such dynamic experience. I want to make sure we get that. So we have some volunteers. If you can raise your hand, or you can come up and come on up. Thank you. So 1, still counting. Any more volunteers? You can just walk up. I'm not sure if I can see you if your hands are up. There we go. Thank you. I see 3. Good morning. Okay, so we're going to start, and if you want to join in, feel free to come up, and we'll get started and just introduce yourself and take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Sheikah Houston, bringing you greetings from Chester, South Carolina. Yeah, South Carolina in the house. So I have enjoyed everything so far, from the keynote yesterday to today, the sessions. My biggest takeaways have been about teaching resilience. I think our children definitely need to be taught resilience. And from today, I think self-awareness is the best awareness. A lot of times as adults, we will hoard our information and we'll talk about it in rooms and groups with other adults. But if children know how their brains work, I think that would be powerful information for them. Thank you. Do you want me to pass it? Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just want to do another South Carolina shout out because my family's from there. We go. Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Grace Neville and I'm from Oregon. Something that I've pulled away from this presentation today is understanding that mental health is a really big thing for educators as well as for our students. And when we did our brain break, I thought about where I could use that within my classroom. And I considered maybe doing it before really big tests or summatives that we give out, and kind of pairing those with positive affirmations afterwards. So having students clear their minds, take a break, take a breath, and then practice that positive mindset of, I'm here for a reason, I'm gonna do great, I'm gonna rock this test pretty much. And that was kind of something that I really pulled away from this today.
Okay. Good morning, I'm Marlena Shorter, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. And what I take away is that when we talk about our thinking, sometimes we have to stop and do meditation for ourselves. And so I actually helped write this situation where the students got yoga mats and they did a mountain meditation. And so the mountain meditation is very entertaining because some students have never been to a mountain, but they can visualize the mountain. And then I did laughing yoga with my students. And the reason why I needed your meditation this morning, because one of my students just called and said she had a wreck and the car flipped over twice. So I had to reground myself to be back in my present moment so that I could help comfort my students. So we do have to yo-yo ourselves, but we have to be ready for what's next.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that reflection. And so the brain break, or kind of just putting it as a part of the day, and it doesn't have to be, it can be 10 seconds, it could be 3 minutes, whatever you need, but it's just kind of creating that routine. And in fact, try it with your family and then see how that goes, because you're kind of giving them a skill. And I use it, I mean, we all use it, I'm sure, as educators, but it's an important part. Yes, sir.
I'm Major Brooks from Kansas City, home of the Kansas City Chiefs. One of the things that I really took to heart is when she says focus on the student. And I was talking to one of my student retention specialists, a young lady. I was a complaint liaison for the district, and she came in with her mom, and she's really belligerent, and she's really, struggling. And I said, stop for a minute. I see things in you that you don't even see. What you've got to do is recognize that ability. And I was just talking to him, and he was saying he's having a hard time with it. I said, I need to talk to her. Because here's the thing that I learned. You care, you give structure, You give directions and guidance, and you become a pathfinder. And throughout their lives, you're there. Not just say it, but mean it. And what I say, I mean, and I stand behind. And I've 20 years of teaching JROTC. I can't tell you the number of students that I've told them. I looked in their eyes and said, I see things you can't even imagine. But I believe that you can achieve. And I stick to it, and I meant it. And they call me Major Pain because I am crazy. I am literally crazy. The Army messed me up. But I'm about motivating and guiding students to success. So when she talked about that one student, I got it in my mind. When I get back, I'm going to his school and I'm gonna pull her because I see potential in her. She's got leadership, she just got bad leadership. She just need a pathway.
That's good, thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Karima Grayson. I'm going back to the Teen Brain video that she shared. And as we all know, there's a lot of educators that are going in alternative certification. So they never took lifespan development or anything. What I thought about is even if I were to help that one student and the other staff didn't, will it be a tug of war? So I'm thinking that the educators and all of the staff need to see that teen brain too, so that they're aware of what the teen brain is, because a lot of times people do say, why are you acting like a teenager? And if they've never taken a course on lifespan development, they're never going to understand. So I'm thinking if it's a school-wide thing, because one person helps one student, the other ones could take away everything that you started.
That's good, thank you. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Appreciate what a great span across the nation. We didn't even plan that. That was 5 separate states represented. So I want to thank you all for the work that you do. Thank you for the time this morning, allowing me to share. I'll tell you, this is probably the second time I've kind of integrated my brother's story into my remarks. And the last time it was related to a similar drop. It was the juvenile justice convening a year ago, and now this one. And the reason for it today is because I know the life-saving work of education, community leaders, organizers, the work that you do. You are thinking every single day about how to sustain and support the future, not just of like our communities, our state, our nation, but the world. We have a blessing that we are training future leaders. And I want to thank you all for the work that you do. Thank you for the space to have the conversations. And I also, as we close out, I'm going to just ask you again to raise your hand. And I want you to remember, they're high now, but raise them higher. But stand up, right? But remember that space. That's the space where transformation can happen. That's the space where even your own efficacy and what you believe you are able to do can take our students to higher heights. So again, thank you so much for your attention and engagement this morning. I really appreciate you all and happy to connect, and I'll see you all throughout the conference. Thank you.
Good job. Folks, let's give Bernadine another round of applause. Definitely. Thank you so much for that learning. Just 1 minute. Being a parent of a teenage daughter that's 14, that teen brain, man, that hit home with me. Because I thought about, what if I was 14? I remember when I was 14, like getting kicked out of class, right? And I'm thinking, what if I lived in like today when I was 14, right? I think sometimes we forget when we was 14 and some of the things that we did, right? As a matter of fact, I was talking to Dr. Brian Marshall. He's Associate State Superintendent over in Mississippi. And we talked about resilience. He didn't think I was going to bring this up this morning, right? And he said that children, when we think about resilience, we think about like children are not as resilient as they used to be. But think about the level of resilience that your children have to live in the world that we live in now. Think about your children's resilience when it comes to social media and some of the things that they're going through that we didn't even have to worry about when we were children. So when we really think about it, our children sometimes are more passionate and even resilient than we were. So when I think about some of the things you said, folks, be that orange frog, right? Be that person that goes against the grain. Be Major Payne, right? Be somebody that's, hey, Monday morning, you're going to be on it, right, with students. Because the children, they've got it. They've got the passion, you know. But what we've got to do is, Dr. Marshall, like you told me yesterday, we've got to lead with empathy, right? We got to make sure that we are connecting with those children. So just a couple of things, folks. One thing that I told Watertown, New York yesterday, right? Larry Schmiegel, right? He sat down for an interview. They're doing a session on last year. They were here and they took those strategies and they started a school called Cyclone Academy. And in 1 year, they have got double-digit gains on attendance and some of the instruction they're going to be talking about. We also have sessions around CTE. I know Hermiston, Youngstown, we've got sessions. We got amazing sessions. Bernadine is going to be back. We've got Thelma and Louise. I hadn't forgot about you. Thelma and Louise, we're talking about alternative education. Folks, if you thought day one was amazing, folks, day two is going to be something, all right? So, we're here. If you need anything, don't you hesitate. You reach out to us. And one more time, let's get Dr. Bernadine Futrell a round of applause. Thank you so much. And lastly, folks, we talked about giving kids those brain breaks. I'm going to take about 3 of those a day, all right? Hey, you guys take it easy. Have a good rest of your day.